All right, everyone, big old trading week has begun. In this video, I'm going to end things with an update on Big Bear AI stock. We're going to talk a bit about the technicals that we see and where exactly we could find bottom for that. Is it nearly in? I think there's some exciting things waiting for us, and we'll also talk about news catalysts and what exactly that could mean for it. I also want to talk about, we'll kick things off with actually Bitcoin, NVDA, Palantir, SOFI, and then, believe it or not, Figma. I'm going to toss in there as well, FIG stock. So pretty darn excited about this. I'm also excited about this Saturday because I got my next workshop coming up, the Beginner Options Workshop. This is the last Beginner Options Workshop before we take it up to the next level. I will let you know when that date is announced for that next level options workshop. This one is to take the absolute beginner, get them to that first call option or put option purchase that they make, and there are a limited number of seats available. Now, mind you, you can use code word money for this, and code word money is going to save you 20%. There's a Q&A session that goes along with it, 90 minutes to 2 hours, about the time frame that you can expect for that. And then also there's a 60-day forum community that you can be a part of where you get access to the recording of the workshop, the presentation that goes along with it, and also some other opportunities and other resources that go along, such as the essential vocabulary that you would need to know. The next options level workshop, I can't wait for that announcement when I put that out there along with the date. It could be as soon as 2 weeks from now. So we'll share that out when it comes time officially. So in the meantime, we have ISM manufacturing today at 10 o'clock. That's our first catalyst that we have. And as long as it stays above 46, I think we'll be all right. Let's put up the charts for you so we can talk about things that I want to talk about here. So Bitcoin, this is a perspective that you're not going to see on a lot of people's charts. Matter of fact, maybe not any. These rays that I have drawn on here, I'm pretty sure I'm the only one who's drawn them. Now, mind you, it's a little bit like the speed fans or the Fibonacci fans that you could have. Now, take a look at the tweezers that we have on the monthly chart. This is BTC versus the US dollar 1 month. And when you see these two high top wicks like this, typically it follows with the sell. We don't know that we'll see it. Right now we're bouncing. We'll talk about that bounce in a moment. We are settling back to the 5 EMA on the monthly chart, which has been support for us recently. The 13, by the way, coming in at about 95,000 is absolutely enormous support. Just so you know, in case we come down that far, take a look at what happened the last several times that we got down to that 13 month. We came down to, well, about 75,000 per BTC before rocketing up to about 125,000. And also we came back down here. That eventually led that price tag, by the way, down to this rate that I have about 50,000, took us up to a peak of about 110,000. So we over doubled from that point. And if we go back even before then to the last time that we crossed up above, we're above and then crossed down under that 13 EMA where we even touched the 50. Now, we'll talk about the 50 for just a brief moment. Not a lot of validity in talking about it right now, but I'll tell you about it. So the last time that we were there, we were around at 24,000, took a rocket ship right up to about 73,000, so about 3xing from that bottom. Now, mind you, that's off of what we saw from the 50 EMA. Now, the 50 EMA for the monthly chart takes all the way down at 60,000. Let's just assume that that would be disastrous to see us down there, and we can just look back historically again to see that it took the sell-off in 2022 and the FTX disaster to really get us down and push us down below the 50 EMA. But once we crossed it solidly, especially once we got that big old retest, we retested there, retested again, and then finally we broke up over these tops before. That was that signal that really kicked things off in October of 2023 when we had a lot of risk on and market recovery. Crypto market moved right along with it. So for Bitcoin, for the monthly chart, that's what we have. Let's drop down to weekly and see what that looks like. We're down below the 5 and 13 EMAs for that, but we still are up above the 200 and the 50. Still, that's overall bullish to see, even if we see some near-term weakness. Once again, there's that $95,000 price tag coming out with that 50 EMA on here, which is the 50-week. And if we drop down to the daily chart, what does that look like? Well, you can see that we're still up above the 200, first of all, still overall bullish, but we are down below the 5, the 13, and the 50. This is a bearish setup here, especially with them being negatively sloped. We might see a retest of the 50. That'd be a one heck of a push up to about 113,000. And then if we hit our heads there, then we probably go down and test the 200. We'll have to watch and see. If we sit on top of the 50, we can probably get the moving averages to start doing bullish crossovers instead of bearish crossovers, and then we could recover well. This week has too many question marks for me to say what we're going to see in the near term. ISM services, watch my video from yesterday. I go through them all about what we have with the labor market data that's coming out and the Fed's recent kind of quick switch, if you will, to maybe it is time to cut. it really does have the market wondering what exactly we're going to see this week for those labor market reports. And depending on the narrative that we get from that, then it pushes on to the inflation reports as those next big catalysts, followed by the Fed meeting. Don't forget about Michigan consumer sentiment in there. So other things that I wanted to show you on the daily chart before we move on. Let me pop these up here for you so you can see the structure that we're in on the daily chart right now. A break of this structure, this bearish channel that we're in the near term, is something that we're looking for in order to see that first movement out of it. But again, watch for that 50-day EMA that's on there. And I have marked for absolutely massive support down here around the $100,000 mark down to about the 95,000. And if we put the Fib extensions up there, you can see that as per the Fibonacci extensions, we were probably going to get a bounce when you have them doubled up like this. Most likely you get a bounce like that. We have 1, 2 low bottom wicks, and then you will have that third one where we finally came down one more time, taking a nice bounce back up to the top of the channel. Now that does coincide with the price action we have over here. And if we go back a bit further, you can see that ties in with the previous peaks that we were going to have. Now, mind you, these lines were established before these peaks ever did. So when we started getting the high wicks up where we got those lines for resistance, then that sell eventually happened. We had it happen one more time before we finally broke out and sat on top of them. It took a couple times, took a couple tries, but finally we did. So we currently still have them as support. If we lose them and turns into resistance, it can be pretty strong resistance for us. But near to that is that $100,000 mark. We have the 200-day EMA here at about 104. If we put up the SMAs for a moment, there's the 200 SMA that's on here around 101. And then 100,000 is just south of that. And then below that, we have that pushed down at about 95,000, which I think will be that really coiled spring attack that that's probably near term what we might see at a low is 95,000, unless the narrative comes out that really has the people thinking that the sky is falling down, but then the opportunities just deepen from there. Long-term bullish on Bitcoin. And then when we move over to NVIDIA, where do we find ourselves? Well, we're right down at this support. As I record this, we're pushing down into that support area that I reported on in my previous videos, that if we fall down through about 168, we have a fair way to fall, about $11 to fall to about 157, with not a lot of structure in between in order to stop us. However, if we catch on to the support here, we can watch that rubber band happen that could easily send us back up to about the 180s. So we would be watchful for that as well. Again, this is support for a reason. If that support holds, then that's where we bounce. If that support fails, we got a pretty big drop ahead of us to watch out for. Palantir. The weekly chart's what I wanted to talk about on Palantir. We'll take all that down because what we ended with last week with that doji candle, that massive indecision, and this today, that could tell us about what to expect for Palantir. Let me take down a lot of this these technicals here for you. There we go. We'll uncrowd your screen so you can really see more of what's going on. And I missed a rectangle. There we go. Which, by the way, where was that rectangle? It was this one. You can see the support that we're in right now. And the last time that we tagged that support, once again, this was drawn before we had this candle that was here. And that's important. That validates the technicals that we have. And we kind of sit on this shelf that was back here anyway. So what should we be watching for Palantir? Well, if we get that candle that happens to be down here this week, we want to watch how that closes. That's a perfectly drawn candle, by the way. I'll turn it red for you so that you know that that would be sort of a bearish thing that we would see. We want to watch the 13 EMA. Do we close down below it? Because if so, we could potentially get the 5 to cross down below that 13 EMA as well. And if we're able to hold on that 13 week as support and push back up above the 5 EMA, that would certainly be that vote in the bullish direction. RSI is still pretty healthy for the weekly basis. Monthly is way up there, still sitting at about 93. Look at that high wick that we got. It would be natural to see us settle back down to that 5 EMA on the monthly chart here. And when we look on a daily basis for what we got for Palantir, you can see more of the indecision that we saw with that weekly candle. Well, what do we see right now? Right now we see the price action in the pre-market pushing down below that 50 EMA, but still where these wicks are, where we got some of that buying pressure pushing us back up above. As long as we stay down below and keep on putting that pressure from the 5 down on this, watching the 5 cross over the 50 is the next bearish sign. And once again, this would be more near-term weakness that I would expect to see in an overall bullish environment. So if we do see that weakness, I do think it's going to be near-term, sort of myopic for us, and we might see a bit of a continuation from what we saw there. give us that de-risking. We're still up above the 200-day. And on a weekly basis, we're up above. We still have a perfectly bullish structure here, with the exception of the fact that the price action is down below the fastest of the moving averages. So that tells us that in an overall bullish environment, that, well, until the situation changes, until the narrative changes, well, that we should still be fairly bullish, even if we see some near-term price weakness happen. And we got to be careful not to front run the markets, because if you think the market is heading south on something like this, then we get reports that aren't so bad and then the market wildly recovers. Well, that puts you out of money when you went short, when you should have went long. And honestly, we just don't know at this point in time. As those reports roll out, we'll find out if this is that sell-off September or if this is a spectacular September to remember. We're just going to have to watch and see what we get. If we go over to SOFI, the monthly chart can show you that we are darn near those peaks, and we're probably sitting on some pretty solid support. If we drop down to the weekly chart on this one, we are still well above that 5 EMA on this one. Look at that perfect bullish structure, 5 over 13, over 50, over 200. All your faster ones are over your slower ones. We have that gap above the 5. We could see that pullback to that 5 EMA if we're going to get that softness. And if we drop down to the daily chart on this, well, what do we see? Well, we see just a little bit of a top on this thing, that with the bulls putting pressure on the bears on this, we don't necessarily know that the bulls are giving up that ground yet. We have the 13-day down below that, which has acted as fairly solid support for us all throughout. Now, if we drop down to an intraday look on this thing, you can see a bit of a double peak and also a bit of a neckline on this thing with some structure to the left that says that there's support in this area. If I put the technicals on here for you and really zoom into where we're at right now, if we lose 24.67 and that 50 EMA that happens to be in there, we might push down to that 23.12, but then we really start to get into some different pivots. We get into some Fibonacci retracements on this. We also have a trend line on this, and then more Fibonacci extensions down below. So what that looks like right now is that we actually have maybe some opportunities coming our way if we're going to show that price weakness as the week drags on. Especially, like I said, it all depends. Is there going to be a growing narrative? So the way that I see that, and I'll get to Fig stock in just a second here, and also, of course, bigbear.ai, the building narrative is what we're watching out for. So if we get excellent manufacturing numbers from ISM manufacturing, well, then that would be refute the narrative that we should be selling off for right now. And then we were still looking at JOLTS, but we're a little bit more skeptical with JOLTS coming out. So let's say JOLTS comes out, that's well above that 7 million mark. Well, then once again, that starts to go against that labor market weakness narrative that maybe could start happening for us. And so, well, again, that refutation would be a big thing that takes pressure off of non-farm payrolls and takes it off the unemployment rate. And let's say that they also came in really good. Also, ISM services, by the way, which is going to come out our way, I believe. Let me see. That should be Thursday at 10 o'clock. JOLTS will be Wednesday at 10 o'clock, and the non-farm payrolls and unemployment would be Friday at 8:30. Again, watch my video from yesterday. I covered that more. But for that narrative building, the more that we refute the narrative that we're in a weak position right now, the more the market's going to just experience that levity and that release of downward pressure, and we should take a good, healthy bounce. Now, mind you, if it goes the other way, that we have the ISM numbers, manufacturing or services, we'll say manufacturing first, come down 46 or lower, that's going to put a lot of pressure on JOLTS, which means that the market's going to experience a lot of uncertainty, so it would likely give us more red leading up to that JOLTS data on Wednesday at 10 o'clock. JOLTS, if it comes out south of 7 million, especially if it comes in well south of 7 million, that starts to really put a lot of pressure on non-farm payrolls and unemployment to perform and puts more skepticism, more uncertainty out there. The market probably experiences more red. And then ISM services, let's say that also, and I'm going with extremes here, that they all confirm bullish or they all confirm bearish, or strength and weakness, maybe I should say here. So for ISM services, maybe it contributes that narrative as well, that comes in 46 or lower and shows even further contraction than we expected. Well, then that's something that can also contribute to that narrative. Then we're really scared that non-farm payrolls is going to tell us something ugly, and that unemployment rate is going to start showing some spiking with it as well. So those would be the two different narratives that we'd be looking for. And then, of course, you have any number of mixes in between where the data aren't all confirmatory in one direction or another, that instead they kind of have that balance look back and forth. And then we have mitigated results with some volatility rather than picking a single direction move that would happen from it. So let's talk about Figma stock, because on the hourly chart for Figma, we're finally getting enough data in here that you guys can see. Let me scroll down to the bottom of this. There we go. Stretch it out for you. look at that consolidation that we find ourselves in. The volumes on this have gone absolutely out. All the excitement has been beaten out of this thing. 68 to about 72 is the range that we're stuck in. If we lose 78, it looks like we have just a little bit of history down to about 67. Losing that is uncharted territory, so we go into price discovery mode down below 67, and then we can look at different things such as the Fibonacci retracements or extensions beyond that. But what we're looking for, the next volume move on this, let me show you the daily chart, because you can see the volumes a little bit better on this. The next volume move is going to decide the direction. So if we break up above 72 on volume, we'll probably have a really nice bounce, a really nice recovery. If we drop down below 68 or even 67 on volume, that once again can show us that next direction, that next big move that it's going to take for probably several days that follow. So that's the update I wanted to give on FIG. And then finally, Big Bear AI. Let's go out to the monthly chart, drop the technicals on this so we can see where we were at, where we put ourselves for this. We are so darn close to having a bullish crossover of the 13 over the 50. If the price action can stay up, that's really going to help us out. We've just dipped below the 5-month EMA on this one while keeping the 50 and the 30. And the RSI is also bullish for us right now, but it is declining. That's something to watch. If we go more near term to see what's happening, we just barely dipped 49.87, which is just barely into bearish territory as per the weekly RSI. And we lost the 5 and the 13, but we still have the 50 and the 200. It's important that you see that that's down near about $4.30 for the 200 EMA and the 50 EMA as well on this weekly chart, because that can get us into that mega bounce zone that we're looking at. And then also on a daily basis, you can see the change in the candle structure, that we don't have those big, wild, exciting candles with the big, wild, exciting volumes. Instead, we have very subdued volume with very uncertain candles along the way. So I don't know that we're ready to mix yet into that bullish territory. This is going to be momentum driven. It's going to be news driven. And when that news hits, it's probably going to hit hard, just so you know. And news can sometimes really coincide with some important technicals. While we do have some chance around 474 to 480, I think that we can also watch down here even bigger, down below that 454, which is where that 200 EMA is. The 200 SMA, by the way, is down here at 446, right above that big old fat support that we have. This 424 up to about 446 is where I see that massive opportunity coming in, that maybe we see some of that news hit sometime soon, that we get that wild outperformance. But news can really happen anytime. So people are like, you don't know when that news is going to happen, and you are absolutely right. I have no clue when that news is going to happen, but I will say that the more we pull down to that low 4 or even down below $4 mark, that can really be where we get that next round of outperformance, because I do think that there's going to be bullish news catalysts that come out, because there's a lot of cash floating out there and they stand in position to capitalize on some significant chunks of it. We'll have our fingers crossed that they're massive chunks of it, where we start to really put in those outperformant numbers, that we actually see that $10 to $15 mark come to fruition, that the last earnings call kind of took the wind out of the sails, if you will. Even if we did see some massive buying pressure, the one nice thing that tells us is that we actually do have a fair amount of excitement still in the stock, a lot of interest there waiting for that next big moment to come along, that we're going to see that next momentum driving moment come our way. The question is, when is it going to happen? And watch for that volume spike, because that'll probably just start the move, and then we'll probably have several days to maybe even weeks, if it's big enough, where we see that rest of that move continue from there, that the opportunities come following the news. But I will say, in terms of de-risking, if you do like options, I talked about my options workshop, selling of put options. If you believe that the bottom is in somewhere, that selling of put options is some way to capitalize on that bottom, or to even get those wonderful cost bases that you always wish that you could have. It works even better on stocks like NVDA, on Palantir, if they start to sell off for you, and then you can really capitalize on some of that premium. That's my next workshop after the beginner workshop. Beginner workshop on September 6th, 2 p.m. Eastern time. Like I said, there's the live Q&A that goes with it, the forum community for 60 days that goes along with it, and all the resources and all the support that you could ever hope for such a thing. Guys, check out the link in the description. Don't forget to use code word money. If you're going to join us at the Discord, make sure you use code word doctor when you sign up. And for those courses, code word doctor is also going to work. All those links are down in the description for all that opportunity for you. Let me know what you think of this video down in the comments. Guys, thank you for watching. I am Dr. Stock, Doctor of Education. Remember, my friends, that learning is earning. I'll see you next video.